Hygrophila Corymbosa Siamensis 53, not the alpha, the beta. I almost always use this plant in place of plants like Valsneria. The reasons for that is it is much easier to maintain in a certain area of your aquascape as opposed to certain plants that send out a lot of runners throughout the aquarium and cause a lot of mayhem in an aquascape that you're trying to maintain. This is different from Willow Hygro in the fact that it grows a little bit shorter, a little bit wider leaves, but otherwise it is a vibrant green, nice stalk stem plant that sends out a lot of side shoots, and I would recommend this plant for anybody who's beginning in the planted aquarium hobby and you're trying to fill out with some bright green in the midground or even in the background of the aquarium. Many years I spent filling out the back of aquariums with the cousin to this plant, the Hygrophila angustifolia, otherwise known as willow hygro, mainly because it looks a lot like a willow tree once you allow it to grow up and trim it off. As you can see in my tank here, I'm having a lot of success planting this diagonally and maintaining a stair-step scape, keeping it short in the front, medium in the middle, and tall in the back. Utilizing this method gives a lot of depth to the tank in a space here where there actually is an overflow in the center of the tank. It actually has less depth here, but this is gaining a lot of depth utilizing this plant in this manner. Be aware that this plant will grow quite tall and eventually right out the top of your tank. Propagation is quite simple though. As you can see here, it's all about just picking the right spot and trimming it off. Be aware that all of these parts that you're trimming off of the top of the plant can be readily planted right back into the substrate. They will root and grow into a whole new plant. You realistically could start off with very little of this plant and continue to propagate in this method and end up with a completely filled jungle tank with just this plant if that's what you're looking for. Hybridizing plants in the 21st century is becoming more and more common. This happens to be a hybridized plant. I'm not sure who did the hybridization of this. I believe it was Tropica. If you have some insight, go ahead and throw it in the comments below and we can look into it and try and see where it originated. Now, the reasons for hybridization vary widely. Typically, this is done in order to either have a plant look a certain way or grow a certain way. And more often than not, it's so that it will readily adapt to your aquarium conditions and give an overall better experience living in such a small ecosystem that we provide. Like a lot of aquarium plants, this originates in Asia. I would consider this a medium to faster growing plant, so if you are looking for something to fill in pretty rapidly, this is a pretty good plant for that. This isn't a hugely demanding plant as far as light consideration goes. I've been growing these under the Fluval 3.0s, although in the past I've grown Hygrophila under LED floodlights, T5s, T8s, T12s, high pressure sodiums, all sorts of lights out there will work fantastically for this plant, so don't be too stressed out. Now, if you do end up having a ton of extra light, a ton of extra fertilizer and things like that, it will have a tendency to grow kind of a reddish color instead of the bright green. Now, I want to continue fostering the bright green color. I get stoked for bright green colors. So I'm going to continue propagating for the bright green, although I have noticed some slight tinging coming from some of the older leaves on the plant. So I'm going to have to keep aware of that and continue to trim and replant, which is my normal propagation and maintenance paradigm as far as most of my tanks go. CO2 is not a requirement for this plant, but as always, I recommend CO2. It's just going to improve your success, and nowadays it is much more affordable than it used to be in the past. And also, there are so many awesome tutorials on how to set up your regulators and all that kind of stuff these days. There's really no reason to not do it. Substrates, as always, I would recommend to look into possibly getting some kind of professional aqua soil, or even just a product that is an aqua soil. It doesn't necessarily need to be professional or not. It can be amateur grade, but I will say that in the past I have grown this specific plant and its cousin in inert gravel. This is one of those plants that I can recommend. Hey, if you have something that will hold it into the substrate, it's probably going to do well. And that has to do with this plant being able to pull nutrients from the water column much more readily than a lot of other plants. That being said, you want to make sure that you're at least fertilizing the water column with whatever your favorite comprehensive fertilizer is. Water temperature is almost always a concern at some point in time. With this plant, I would say you have a pretty wide range of temperatures from 65 probably at the low all the way up to 86 on the high end. So you do have quite a wide range of temperature in order to keep this plant happy and not be that concerned. My recommended pH is typically in the 6.8 range, which is where I like to keep my aquariums. I don't like to keep them much higher or lower, even though I do buffer with a little bit of crushed coral in my sumps. This plant being a relatively low demand plant, I can recommend this to pretty much anybody out there. I will be getting in some willow hygro, the angustifolia, here fairly soon. Even though I grew it for years and got super tired of it, I want some back. So I'm going to get some of that, and I will in the future be able to show you some of the contrast between the two, and maybe that will facilitate your decision-making process in the future. In the meantime, this is a really readily available plant that you can go ahead and pretty much order online just about anywhere, and get it in your tank, get it growing, and enjoy it while you can. If you found this video to be helpful, I would appreciate you clicking all the YouTube buttons down below, like the like button, and the join button, and the subscribe button, and all of the freaking buttons that are just button crazy these days. I get it. If you want to join our little community, you could hit that join button, or you could head over to our Patreon page and become a community member that way. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll get back to you later. www.youtube.org .edu. ampersand ampersand cha cha cha.